I think we need to normalize telling women that their son is not their bae, their daddy, or their kings. I really, I really need that to be
Please
normalized to
stop.
where that's like a thing. Soon you hear your sister, cousin, anybody say that, tell them that make me feel very uncomfortable because that's something you should say to your man.
Time out now. That's just it's just for me, especially as a mother of a son. I'm just like, no, he is not. He is my child, and he is not my best friend. He can't be. Period.
So sometimes these mother-son dynamics are literally caused because men couldn't keep it in their pants because they didn't have discipline because they picked wrong with who they got pregnant.
That's not your man. You have to you cannot blur those lines because he may not know the difference. You may not know the difference. So when either one of you get ready to move on, here you are stuck in this loop of y'all intimate relationship. And I'm not talking about in an incestual way, but it's an intimate relationship that becomes a little weird.
Today, we will be diving deep into the dynamic between mothers and sons, especially the fine line between a close bond and emotionally burdening a young boy. Let's unpack this honestly, but with real talk. But I can't have this conversation by myself. Let's welcome our guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I have 4 esteemed guests here with me to have this amazing conversation. And what we're going to do here for starters is give a brief introduction. I want you all to answer this question. When you hear a mother call her son her best friend, what thoughts or emotions come to mind? We're going to start with Joy.
My name is Joy, and by way of introduction, I guess I'm a mom of an almost 13-year-old boy, so teenage years loading up here. A little bit is Mel is my brother-in-law, so he's married to one of my sisters. So yeah, so he's family. I don't know that it's necessarily thoughts or emotion. It's just time out now. That's just it's just for me, especially as a mother of a son. I'm just like, no, he is not. He is my child, and he is not my best friend. He can't be. Period. That's it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, let's go to Ida. You can introduce yourself and answer that question.
Well, I'm Ida, and I'm on TikTok as Ida Elizabeth, and I say what I think. So, yeah, I might say some some off the wall stuff, but it's coming from a good place because I want to help. And what else? What was it? What was the question?
When you hear a mother call her son her
Oh,
best friend, what thoughts or
oh,
emotions come up for you?
probably no diploma, and probably don't have a man or a life.
Oh, oh,
And if she does have a man, he don't play a significant role in their lives.
she ain't happy.
Mm.
Whoa, you didn't lie about saying what you want to say. All right, let's go to Kendall.
So I am Kendall L. Williams, and
Okay.
podcast. I
Mm.
speak the unfiltered, authentic truth about motherhood and parenting. And as it relates to that question, Ida kind of said what I was going to say. That's a flag for me. When I hear mom say that's my best friend, it leads me to also believe she doesn't have a man. If she does have a man, she's not happy. And she's way too codependent on that relationship with her son.
My brother Jeff, and he goes by Ask a Brother Podcast, so I try to refer to you by that as well. Go ahead, my man.
Yeah, the name is Jeff James. I'm just now getting started in this podcasting space. Ask a Brother podcast is what I'll be going by. And as far as this particular topic, yeah, thoughts about codependency, thoughts about whether or not a man is in this child and her life, as well as whether or not if he is there, if he has a significant, same thing that the ladies have said, whether or not he would have a significant role in the life of their child or son specifically. Those would be typically the things I would go to as well. I wouldn't assume that the biological father, upon hearing that, had a significant role to play in his child's life at all, if I heard something like that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into our topic here. I found this video that struck me a certain way, so I want to get others' opinion on this, and we're getting right into our discussion. Let's take a look. And due to copyright restrictions, unfortunately, I cannot play the music, but I have added the lyrics here. It's K. Michelle can't raise a man.
But you can't raise a man, he's already grown. What you gon' do? You wonder why he acts like a boy. It's 'cause he wasn't raised right before you.
Girl, you ain't never gonna change nobody. If you don't wanna, You can't make nobody, 'cause you can't raise a man. No. No.
All right. All right. So this one we're gonna start with Ida. Give your reaction to that video and then answer this question. Can a mother and son truly be best friends without blurring emotional boundaries?
No, I don't think so. No. So the song choice is crazy to me too, because I'm not understanding can't raise a man. I don't know if she's saying that like she raised her son right, or I don't know. I just think that's a song you should be singing with your best friend or sister or somebody like that. But your son, I don't know. That's not fitting at all.
All right, Kendall.
Ooh. So for me, I'm fine. So back up. I have 2 adult sons, 29 and 34. That's number one. At that age, if my sons and I had a good relationship where we can go to lunch or we can hang out, that's fine. But I'm still looking at them like they're my sons. They're not my friends. So I similar to what she said, the song was ironic that you would be bopping to "Can't Raise a Man," because in my mind, I'm looking at like maybe you're not raising a man. So,
Mm,
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It was a bop though. It's a bop.
agree.
It's a bop.
For sure. All right, ask a brother.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to agree with the ladies as well. I think the song choice is crazy. It is a bop,
Unfortunately.
meaning that I was rooting for her. But
Mm,
unfortunately, I don't typically, on my side being a therapist, by the time they make it into a clinician's office and the work that we have to do, these are usually the beginning signs of something that I deal with later on when they're married, when they're having issues with women or later in life. These are some of the signs you'll typically see of them overstepping certain lines and boundaries that kind of come
Mhm.
back to haunt them. Can they be friends? Yeah, they can. It's definitely possible, but it's usually going to be at a detriment of other major areas in their life, whether it be authority figures, discipline, understanding appropriate boundaries between the two of them, and just even understanding the importance of the role of a male or a man. All of those are going to be detrimentally impacted because of how close and um, more friend than parent these type of dynamics tend to be.
Yeah, she's going to be the mom that's in my comments saying, "What about the daughter-in-laws?" Because now she's mad because her son has moved on and he's
Hmm.
in a relationship and now he's putting his wife first and no longer his mama. And she's going to
Mm.
have a problem with that and she's going to blame it on the daughter-in-law when number one, I always hold your son responsible or your daughter responsible for fostering any relationship as it relates to you and them. But when your child gets married, their spouse comes first. When your child is in another relationship, their partner comes first. So that's going to present a problem depending on the dynamic of the relationship. So she'll be in my comments saying, "Well, what about the daughter-in-laws? My son doesn't talk to me like he used to anymore." Yeah. And then I have to gather her and tell her exactly what I just said.
All right, let's quickly go to Joy.
Um, gosh, the answer, like everyone has said, I think no. It's, and I think for me, it's not. I was listening to the song and I'm just shaking my head because to the point I think Ida made, that's not a song that should be listened. I should be bopping to with my little boy. I don't care how old he gets. But the fact that the boy was really digging in, I'm going, what do you know about this? You were not emotionally matured enough to understand the intricacies of raising a child with or without a man in your life. So what do you know about this? I don't think that boy was I don't even think he was up to 20 years old. Your frontal lobe is not even fully developed yet. So I don't know what you're talking about. So the short answer is no. But I think also it goes to what I think Ask a Brother was saying. It's when you see this manifest later on in life, because she has pulled him into the hardship of what it is as a Black mother or as a young mother, all these things that he is not mature enough to, I don't know, digest and understand. But because he loves his mom, he's taken on that weight already. He's trying to feel all these things that he has no business feeling at all. And that's where, to me, excuse me, just watching him and how he's feeling it, the lines are already blurred. And it's already starting. It's already entrenched in him. Unfortunately, like, you should not be bumping to that, because you do not know what it is to make a family and grow a family at that age.
He's also going to have an issue if she gets into a serious relationship because of the dynamic of that relationship. So we need to talk. If I'm skipping, y'all pause me. But yeah,
No, go ahead.
with the dynamic of their relationship, if they have that type of relationship, he's also going to have a problem when she gets into a serious relationship, if she is not already. And he's going to interfere into that relationship and cause havoc in hell because she has made him the object of everything.
And not just the object. I think there's an importance of placing of roles in relationships, especially with the parent-child dynamic. I'm one of 4 girls and I have 2 brothers. Make no mistake, it does not matter how old we are. My mother is my mother, period. We're not girlfriends. We're friendly, but we're not friends. That there's no, that's not even somebody misinterpreting that. In the same way I'm raising my child, right? We can be friendly. We can always communicate. You can always come to me, but there is no disillusionment as to what your role is and what mine is. And so, to your point, Kendall, whether a man is in her life now or about to be, if he's already blurring the lines and there's no healthy boundaries with what she's saying to him, what he's witnessing or not witnessing, he does not know what it is to have a healthy relationship for his mom, what that looks like. So if somebody comes in, then it seems like, well, I have to protect mom. And now you're taking mom away from me. And he's gonna get confused about it. And then she's so in love and so happy that she feels like, what's wrong with you, boy? It snowballs from there on.
No doubt. And I actually commented on this post, like only I can do. I'm pretty controversial, my brother Jeff. I'm sorry, but I just can't help myself. But I tried to be light. So I said, I'm praying for the brother. And I kind of knew how she would take it. So she was like, what you mean? The mom responded to me. And I said, well, he has no clue what's ahead of him. So it prompted this question I want to open up to the panel, to you guys. We use this term, son husbands. How possible, or is it possible for those who are in that dynamic to notice that they're in the current state?
I don't think they look at it like that. I don't think the mom looks at it in that manner. And I definitely don't think the son looks at it in that manner. I think there's responsibility placed on him as the man of the house in the role that she's put him in. But I don't think they really are looking at it from that perspective. I did an episode last year saying, sis, he's not your man. And the mamas weren't happy about it, but it is what it is. It needed to be said because that's not your man. And your child doesn't know how to separate the two. So I don't think they're logically thinking about it in that manner, even though on the outside we're looking at it in that manner. But I think there's a responsibility that's placed on them that kind of places them in that position, especially when she's like, my son is he's gorgeous or he's amazing. You know what I'm saying? And you're supposed to affirm your children. Like, don't get me wrong. But I think there's a level to it that shouldn't be crossed. And I think some moms, when they're really caught up into that son-mother dynamic, those lines are crossed when you say stuff like, oh, my son's so fine. And, oh, he's so handsome. And, all of that type of stuff. Like, I just think it crosses the line.
I think it's an age limit on that. Like, you could say they're cute when they probably little kids, but when they start when they become teenagers, it's a no.
That's it.
No.
Yeah.
I think they don't ever notice until it's too late as well, or until somebody else bring it to their attention. Like when he get a woman or a wife or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I like to believe that my mom still thinks I'm cute now. But as far as the warning signs that they could potentially identify, or just people on the outside could potentially identify, I have four that I've been kind of reflecting and thinking about that are really easy ones to kind of pinpoint and acknowledge. The first is he's being expected to shoulder financial burdens unnecessarily at an age that's probably not appropriate.
Mm.
You'll typically see this dynamic earlier. You're not going to see the what's it called, the son husband thing that doesn't manifest when he's 30. This is something that typically starts to happen pretty young, potentially on their teenage years, especially when they're at the space or point when they can start to try to make money legally or illegally to try to compensate for the lack of a father figure or male role model being in the home to supplement the income. The second was, and this is probably very obvious to a lot of women who have seen it and experienced it. Moms become extremely jealous and possessive to the point that she'll continually attempt to undermine and sabotage any meaningful connections that he'll have with other females. And this could be during teenage years or even adult years. But that very visceral, if you're just new, you're just being introduced to the family, and mom has this animosity, that's usually a telltale sign that there may be something inappropriate or a level of attachment that's kind of gone too far in terms of the dynamic between mom and son. Number three, mom or son will attempt to make immediate family planning decisions that factor each other more than they factor the immediate partner or wife.
Mhm.
We talking about buying homes and where we gonna live and what type of property we gonna get and all. And the wife or girlfriend who's been in the picture for a hot minute, it's like, wait a minute, your mom's gonna be moving in with us? Oh
Right.
wait, like what that dynamic where they're making plans with each other and they're kind of omitting the woman who's supposed to be eventually taking her role in her place. And number four, the mother may rarely, if ever, point out things that her son did wrong or needs to change, especially when interacting with other women. She'll always side with her son. So those are the four things that I think, um, just clinically, just watching TV like everyone else. Those are typically the four major components that I could think of that'll pretty easily stand out to people who are exhibiting it, and it'll be very clear to those who are the witnesses.
Yeah, I've had to tell someone myself, you probably gonna end up with your mom.
Okay, y'all gonna make a real good couple.
Real hiccup.
But I think it's the full points are, it's just sad hearing it, but it is true, right? It is true, especially in the African American community. I think for me, looking at, I mean, we have all these, like when there's draft and all that, and this was, I want to thank my mom, my grandmother, right? It's endemic in the community because these are the pillars, right? That raised them. The dad was absent or in and out. And so the boy from an early age, like you said, ask a brother, from an early age has become beholden to the matriarch and to the moms and their family because, oh, they give their lives, they give birth to me, they sacrifice everything, they work all this while. And that's ingrained in them. I can't wait to do this. I can buy a house for them. I can't wait to do this. So there's this, I owe you everything. And this is where they justify the keeping the partner out, right? Because you don't know what my mama did for me. You don't know what they went through for me. Like you wouldn't have me if not for them. And they justify, but to your point, the mom doesn't stop and draw the healthy boundaries. Like that was great, but now you start a new life. Here's where I stop and here's where you continue. They don't draw that line. And the other thing too is the mom, I think, in every ethnic culture, I think the mom, when there isn't a man in life or the relationship isn't great, like the super dad or the great dad, begins to overcompensate, right? Because she's the mom and dad. Especially if she didn't have a dad in her life. She's trying to play the role the best that she can, right? And so she's trying to say, if we have this wonderful close relationship, that means everything is all right. But she's looking at it as my baby right now, but not I'm raising a son who's going to become somebody's partner, who's going to become somebody's father. Who can I bring? Who are the brothers? Who are the community members that I can bring to instill in this boy what it is to become a young man, a productive member of society? She's not thinking beyond that. And I think that's where the problem is. He's become indebted to her. She says, but I need to protect you. I need to give you everything. But you're not giving him. You're being a disservice to him. because you're not preparing him for the bigger world, to be a dad, to be a member of society, and that's to his detriment at the end of the day. And then the other thing I was saying was, I wrote down was, the part about being responsible for the mom's happiness. I think that's so big emotionally. It's almost like I don't know which word to use for it. It's a major burden because mom is not happy, so I'm going to do this. And when they start as a little kid, oh, mom, it's okay, everything is okay, especially if there's an abusive relationship situation, then they feel like they have to protect mom. They have to give, and this is telling on this child because even when mom is in a good relationship, there's a detachment. If it's bad, let me come back in and save and be mom's hero. It just never ends. And so when a new person comes in, it's like you're busting that bubble of me and mom. And they don't know how to deal because nobody gave them the capacity, nobody gave them the right mechanism or tools on how to do that. And unfortunately, it is something we see over and over. And sometimes today when I see people say, oh, my mom, I'm like, it's good to appreciate your mom, but everyone has their role in their place. Make sure you're according the right amount of deference and respect to each one, especially when your partner and your children come into play. So.
Joy, I love so much of what you covered. When me and Kendall did our episode a couple weeks ago, I actually pointed out that there was a point in growing up when I kind of started to feel like I needed to be the man of the house, and my mom wasn't the one who said it. It was actually my dad and my uncle on two separate occasions. Apart from obviously with my dad and my mom separating and eventually getting a divorce, hearing it from two men, I started to feel this pressure. I started to feel this thing that wasn't really there when my dad was present. So sometimes these dynamics are literally created because of an inability for men to step up or to be allowed to remain in their child's life. So a lot of these mother-son dynamics are natural, organic manifestations of men not being allowed or not willing to stay in situations where they can actually, from 12 years, 13 years on, be able to be more involved in his life and role. So that's an interesting dynamic where a lot of times we put this heat on mothers, and rightfully so for this dynamic, but some of it is coming from a place of there was a man involved and he don't want to be involved anymore, or he feels like he can't be. And whether it's because we can't see eye to eye, we're splitting amicably, I cheated, whatever the reason is, the ramifications is now he may now grow an attachment to the parent who stays or becomes the custodial parent, which may then lead to these type of dynamics. So sometimes these mother-son dynamics are literally caused because men couldn't keep it in their pants, because they didn't have discipline, because they picked wrong with who they got pregnant. So I'll be quick, and Kendall knows I'll be quick to point out for an hour long about things mothers need to work on. But this dynamic didn't always come and happen in a vacuum. It can easily be something that happens either accidentally or just unintentionally by the fact of fathers can't stay in the home or never were to begin with.
I think he
If
just
I could add, I'm sorry. I was going to piggyback off of what you said then. What would be your take? And Kendall also, if you want to. So they're just dealing the hands that they were dealt, right? They're just making lemonade with it. But how about I think the abdication of responsibility, say, well, that's what's happened to me, but I need to surround my child with the village. I feel like it's like, oh, I'll do this by myself, me and God. And that is good. But you have other healthy relationships, even if it's not your immediate family, that you can reach out to help you shoulder or carry this burden and raise this boy into a man.
Yes,
What's the
some women
justification
don't
of
have that.
advocating that?
But some women don't have that, Joy. Some women don't have that village. You know what I'm saying? Everybody does not have a village. I can speak for myself, but I was very intentional about not involving my sons in my emotions, not impacting them as far as sharing what I was going through personally. And I think that's where the lines get kind of blurred too. When moms start to rely on their son, like, I'm telling you all my personal business. And it's this intimacy that's being created. You think unintentionally, but it's creating this dynamic. But yeah, everybody, they just don't have that. And I think when moms start to need emotional validation, they don't have a man, so now they're looking for this man in their home, which is their son, to give them that validation they're looking for. So I think that's when the lines start to get a little blurry. It's not until I got divorced and got with my now husband, who is a good man and a good role model and a good example of what a man should be, how he's treating me. That's when my son started to see that dynamic. But at the same time, again, I didn't even have to be intentional. It just never came to mind to make them my emotional crutch. And I think that's what happens with some moms. They're making their sons their emotional crutch, and they get them too involved in everything that they shouldn't be. And there's this emotional attachment that starts to happen that becomes very unhealthy.
Yeah, I agree with Kendall that it's in our current society and the way our country functions in terms of the view and value of family, tradition, communal living. We're the opposite. We're very extremely individualistic. It's all about me, me, me. The reason why we often want to keep a kid and the reason why we want to leave a relationship is usually about me. So we can't take for granted that this isn't the 1890s anymore, where there's this huge group of people that you can run to and go to. We can't take that for granted that everybody has that. I would even argue that if that was more present and people were allowed to have more say, our homes and our demographics might not look the way that they do. If the community was as popping and as prevalent and as healthy, then I think a lot of women wouldn't even find themselves in these situations. So the reality is like, I know that it's good if we have those, but typically the people who have them are the people who probably aren't in these type of situations and dynamics to begin with. And even if they go through a bad breakup, even if they go through a bad divorce, they have so many other social supports in place that there's other people stepping up in and out of the home, in their church communities, in their various social settings to kind of alleviate some of the pressure off of mom. A lot of times when you look at the dynamics, it's like grandmom is really young. Grandmom had me at 16. I had my kid at 16. You know, none of us know where the other two baby daddies are. Like I mentioned this quote before, 1 in 3 paternity tests are proving that they don't know who the biological father is. It's 1 in 3. So like, what community? And even if you had that community, who's better at saying what needs to be said in terms of what that boy needs than another man? What's the value and view of men in this community in comparison to all other communities that we can reference and talk about? Where are we on the pecking order in terms of authority, voice, opinion? You talking to a single mother about her child? You see what these teachers got to deal with? What who's lining up to deal with that? Almost nobody, especially if we're not related. We have no shared history together. I don't, and if I'm not working in a mentorship program, if you're not paying me as a clinical therapist, psychologist, or psychiatrist, I can't blame most people for just letting you do you and letting you live. Those are your choices, and you'll get your outcomes. That's our community, unfortunately. So I would love it if our community was actually a community, but we're just connected by skin color at this point. Where there's very little cultural community that we get to a place where people are even asking for feedback and help about this stuff, honestly.
So if I may ask then, because this is getting me quite sad, but I know it's the reality, but I guess in your walks, I guess on the positive side, what could we do? Because Mel knows this. I've said we don't have aunties and we don't have the you know, African American community will have the big mamas, but for me as the aunties, when I was growing up, it's you fear that anybody can just say, "You wait till I tell your mom," and you will beg and cry because you don't want, because you have embarrassed your family if an auntie goes and tell your mom, and it doesn't have to be a blood auntie, right? And so everyone took care of each other. But to your point, that doesn't exist because people are getting younger and younger, and the values are not being instilled in them. Just respecting your elders is not a thing anymore, unfortunately. But then two questions for everyone, I guess. The first is, how can we do better? Where do we start, right? Instead of instilling these values, because we might be dispersed, we might not be in the 1890s, but the common values, the common principles is what really held the community together back then. So how do we bring that back? And then the other question I have is, how do we teach or instill the boundaries and between the dichotomy of vulnerability, which a son needs to learn from a mom, how to be vulnerable, understand the female emotions and all of that, versus, of course, when she kind of crosses the threshold there and goes too far, right? She needs to let him in. She needs to show him that, yes, mom can cry because she's going through a hard time, but doesn't mean I should give all the details, right? Understand it's okay for you as a boy to cry. This men don't cry thing, no. It's okay, but like healthy ways of dealing with your issues and understanding people's emotions and things like that. How do we get that, but without crossing the line? So those are kind of the two aspects. I'm interested in knowing what each of you, your take will be in those two questions.
I don't know. I think we are too far gone and too far along. Like one person is having 3 baby daddies, 5 baby daddies, 6 it's too much. Like you could try to help maybe people in your family or something like that, but I think it's too far gone to even catch up. I don't see it.
I agree. And then not only that, the generations that are preceding some of our generation, well, not our, because I'm probably older than every single one of y'all on here. I'm from Gen X. So we already tried to parent different from our boomer parents, thinking that we were doing our kids a favor by not disciplining them as much as we used to. I disciplined my boys, but I didn't do it like what I experienced as a Gen Xer from my parent. We figured we would let them be able to express themselves a little bit more because we weren't able to talk or express ourselves. And then we raised them, and now my sons are millennials, and then they're going to have children, or they have Gen Zs, and neither one of them do. But to the point, you have these generations that continue to change the dynamic and the structure. The discipline is gone. So we already started it. So we have to be accountable for that from a Gen X perspective. Then the millennials, everything is about feelings. They're so fragile. You know, they want to be coddled. If you told me to make my bed, you know, now that you have me as I was a servant. And then you have the Gen Zs, they don't respect their parents and they don't respect anybody. So because you can't talk to them, you can't discipline them, you can't change them. So to Ida's point, I think we're too far beyond the just having multiple baby daddies, just the structure from where it comes from in parenting, how it continues to change. I saw a young lady on TikTok. I think she had stitched one of my videos, but it expired and I let it go. She looked like she was in her 20s. And she said, y'all go fight your mamas because this going to make y'all feel better. And she had 2.4 million views of that video. And I went in the comments and looked at some of them, and it was thousands of comments with her generation, of course, agreeing with her. So this is where we are. So we have that dynamic. How do we change? It's too far to change it. It's either going to be for the next generation after Gen Z to reset this, but they being raised by Gen Zs and millennials.
I mean, I was raised by a baby boomer and I'm a millennial and I'm not like a lot of millennials, so I don't know. So the next generation can possibly change.
I'm hoping they will. I'm hoping they will. But Gen Z, they're not scared of nobody.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
They're not scared of nobody. You know what I'm saying? And to your point, there are some, because you were raised by boomer parents, you're probably more like a Gen Xer than you are the typical millennial that's here now. Everything is about our feelings. We're fragile. We're victims. You know, I can be heard, but I don't want to be healed. And, you know, it's just, it's changing the trajectory of everything. And then again, if they're raising the new kids coming up, it's going to become even more fragile. So I
To
don't
me,
think.
the boomers don't want to be healed. To me,
I
they
think
don't.
you're
They
right.
don't do. Yeah, they don't do the healing and
No, no,
therapy and
no.
stuff.
I
Yeah.
totally agree. I think the healing from boomers are being a little bit more open to hear what
Mhm.
their children may have to say.
Mhm.
So, and I'm not saying all, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying to a certain degree. I think
Yeah.
about my mom. There was no voice, there was no talking
Yeah.
back. I got beat with extension cords, switches slapped in the mouth, like all of those things that right now they would be like, oh my God. They think abuse is you
Yeah.
telling them to come home at a certain time at night right now. So that's the difference that I'm talking about. But guess what? My mom, because she's removed herself from religion,
Mhm.
and she's become more spiritual, she's open to have more conversations. And that's a whole nother topic. If we get into how religion is the construct and it's controlled the dynamic of how our families raised us.
Yeah, Joy, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer that adds and piles on. But I think that there's three types of people. You have the people who are actively working on improving their lives and the lives of those around them. You have those that may or may not do that given the season that they're in. And then you have those that are never probably going to do that.
I agree.
And sometimes you don't know who it is that's in front of you, whether they're a child, a parent, an adult. So my view is to be at a place where I'm so interested in trying to be better than I was the year before that there will be a natural effect around those around me at seeing that I'm up to something. Being a lot less interested in trying to convert people, change people, tell people they need to. When I wanted to change was when I wanted to change. It wasn't because my mom kept drilling me. It wasn't the punishments. It wasn't the discipline. It was when I wanted to change something about myself. And I think sometimes, and number two, it's going to sound really weird. Most other communities don't view things the way that we do when it comes to the worst aspects of our culture and racial ethnic group and saying, what are we going to do? What they do is they prioritize those that care, those that want to do better and be better, and they allow those that's going to do their own thing. They don't see that as a representation of them. Nobody who is an upper middle class in the white or Asian communities really sees those who just doesn't do anything with their lives as a reflection on all Asian people. And I think we have to get to a place in recognizing that there's literally going to be people who, I'm gonna be frank, if we're not bringing back shame and if we're not bringing back humility for the people who need it, then what are we talking about here? So much of what we get away with, so much of what we do in this culture, so much of what we glorify, praise, give money for, buy tickets for, is almost all the worst aspects of what happens in our community. If you're not willing to bring back shame, because everybody could do what they want, and if you're not willing to reward people who are humble enough to want to ask, how can I be better and do better? If we don't bring back humility and shame, this conversation is kind of mute about who's going to fix things. You can't have the group that needs the most change, but that has the least humility. They lack the
Yeah.
least shame. And you're saying,
Mhm.
like, well, what are we who are growing or mature or changing things about ourselves? What do we do with everybody else? If they're not at a place of humility where they've lost enough, where enough's been taken from them, if they've gone through periods of shame, embarrassment, neglect, if they haven't gone through that, if they haven't seen something that's been meaningful enough to want to strive for more, yeah, I mean, we can sign up for mentorship programs, we can work in nonprofits. That's what I'm doing now. But I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to work harder than you. And that's what I tell all my clients. And the reality is, it's still a choice at the end. And for the stages of change, the reality is those who are struggling the most are in the pre-contemplation stage. They're not even at the stage where they're thinking about changing something. That's not my responsibility. And if you do drug and alcohol therapy, if you do regular, any type of therapeutic approach, your job is just to be ready and have the resources and the tools when they're ready. That's it. And the mental and emotional burden that comes off of you, now you can surround yourself with like-minded people, people who are starting to see what you're doing. I've had guys who I know got bodies, who I know have done some jail time, and they reach out to me at 22, 24, 30 plus years old. Jeff, man, we need to link up. Man, we need to, I love what you're doing, man. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to live. I just had to be. And if they're a safe enough person to be around, I'll do life with them. And that's it. And again, if we've normalized so many of we don't normalize marriage. We don't normalize sticking it out. We don't normalize healing. We don't normalize not weaponizing men's feelings against them. We don't normalize treating single mothers as still human beings. We don't normalize any of these things. We do normalize more baby showers than weddings.
That part.
So,
Come on now.
if we're gonna normalize all the worst stuff, we don't actually care about humility, you're probably not gonna see the change. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean that I'm hopeless. It just means it just means to me that a lot of this is to a degree a personal journey, and I would argue that it's podcasts like these where, regardless of educational background, regardless of my marital status, regardless of whether I'm a parent or not, you're going to be dropping seeds on people when they see these clips. And for every one person that's like, he don't know what he talking about, why is he even talking about mothers, or they all a bunch of pick-me's, you're going to have somebody that's like, I never thought about that. I never realized that. And that's all you could do. When you teach a class, when you teach a course, you don't assume 100% of students are going to pass. You still teach it. When you live and do you're going to do the things that you think make sense and makes your life more meaningful and impactful, and that you can leave a legacy. Some people will be impacted, some people won't. But it's no longer my responsibility for anybody who's not my child, not my wife, not my immediate friend circle, that I have to be okay with. They have a life and choice to do as they see fit as well, as did I. And now I think radically different than I did 10 years ago. And, it wasn't because people were so on top of me. It was just I was spared enough grace to figure out how to figure out life. And now I have a totally different approach about how to approach life going forward than I did even 5, 8 years ago. No one had to sign me up for some special group. I had to want it.
Yes,
So
like I was. Sorry. Go ahead.
So the women who are finding themselves in this situation, they have to want it bad enough to where they're willing to seek out and find, virtually or in person, people who are further along in areas that they want to be further along in their life. Period. Her kids are doing well. She got her kid in a mentoring program. This man, maybe I need to sign my son up with a male therapist. There's options out there, but she has to want it. She got to want it. And if she's not ready to want it, that's her choice. That's her choice.
But then it's
Before we go, Joy, I want you to ask
go ahead.
everybody give one more thought on this, and then we move over to our next
Okay.
question.
Thank you all. That just made me sadder, but but thank you all for your honest and just your candid response to it. I think, but then what's resonated with what everybody said is, we use we as our community, right? It almost seems like our greatest strength is our greatest weakness. Our greatest strength is that we say we collectively, we come together and we prevail together. But yet our downfall is also us coming together and championing things that we shouldn't be championing, right? And so if we cannot expect the next generation to do better because they don't know how to do better, we've allowed them to kind of run amok, then I feel almost like not the personal weight of the responsibility, but as a community, each and every one of us, have we done our best to really come together to make a difference? And to your point, it's yes, each of us in the way we live our lives, in the way we carry ourselves, and not overburden ourselves with this, people will see that and be drawn to that. And as each of us do that, hopefully we form a collective, so to speak, that we begin to cause change, right? Because when I hear we for the culture, and I'm going, this is not the culture. Who is dictating this culture? Because this is not it, right? Our kids are dying, our kids are going just falling astray. They're doing worse than we and our parents did. So who is at the reins? And the elders are dying off. And so it just worries me that we can't expect them to do better when we didn't give them the tools to do better. And so yes, we want to do our best because nobody has the SOP for how to do life. But at some point, like-minded people like us have to start saying, okay, enough is enough, because we have children. If you've not had children yet, you have nieces and nephews. They're all going to get impacted, and we have to want that enough to say, you might hate me right now, but I am going to make this happen because you will thank me later.
All right, Ida, you had a final thought on it, I believe.
Oh no, I was just wanted to say, like, I was the kind of person that learned from watching. Like, I had 8 other siblings, so I knew not to make certain mistakes that they had already made. So I just think you'll waste a lot of time focusing on the bad, or the people, or even the kids who don't want to get it, versus focus on, like he said, focusing on the ones that do want to learn and do want to get it. You'll waste a lot of time. So that's all I really wanted to say.
All right. Man, y'all professionals. Y'all been going through these questions without me even asking. So I love y'all for that. But let's go on to our next one. So the question is, what advice would you give to another mother or to a mother raising a son today to avoid this pattern? I think we'll start with Kendall on this one.
Oh, mind your business. Mind your business. Meaning, stay in your lane. You know what I'm saying? And it depends on the age group, right? Again, I speak from a parent who has a 29-year and a 34 years. I don't get involved in what my sons have going on. I don't get involved in their relationships. The youngest one, who I'm estranged from by my choice, he used to try to involve me in all of his relationships. Keep me out of it. Keep me out of it. This is your life. I'm a consultant now. Don't even look at me as your mother. Look at me as a consultant. You come to me when you absolutely need me, but you need to figure out on yourself. So I say, mind your business, stay out the way. Get away from that dependency, that codependency that you have on your son so much. Even if you're not in a relationship with anyone else, that is not your man. That's not your man. You have to, you cannot blur those lines, because he may not know the difference. You may not know the difference. So when either one of you get ready to move on, here you are stuck in this loop of y'all intimate relationship. And I'm not talking about in an incestual way, but it's an intimate relationship that becomes a little weird. So I would just say, focus on what you have going on. I think communicating, I think somebody else said, it's fine to have those conversations and make sure they're emotionally connected and they're emotionally intelligent. I think Joy said that. I think those conversations are the conversations that you have. If you're a single mom, you teach them how to be a gentleman the best that you can. You get them into some type of mentoring program or something like that. I think those are steps that you can take. But when it becomes intimate, where you're dependent, so codependent on this child or this young man or this man, that's where the lines get blurry. And I think moms need to be very cognizant of that and very conscious of that.
No doubt. Ask a brother.
My 4 or 5 points that I think could be very helpful, both for their moms and their sons. Number one, if I had a client in front of me, I always start with, if possible, try to work it out with the father of your child. Not always possible, not always good, but a lot of times their outcome usually isn't Kendall's outcome, where things actually get harder when they try to go back out in the dating market with a child or 2 or 3. So if you can work it out with the father of your child, that would be option number 1. Number 2, you have to be open to dating mature and responsible single parent fathers who have demonstrated the ability to co-parent well or raise their children on their own. And the reason why I say this is because I can tell you the countless times in person and on social media and when watching Kevin Samuels, where you'll hear women who have children say that they will not deal with, talk to, or date men who have children. Which you have to know that there's a pool of men who don't have children who ain't gonna talk to you. So beggars, I'm not saying beggars can't be choosers, but you kind of have to acknowledge, like, if you bringing a kid into the picture, you can't look like the men who also have children who are your equivalents are now beneath you.
Yeah, it can be
They're on
one.
your level. They're on they're on your level. Now it's important to see how he parents and what's his co-parenting situation dynamic like, if that exists, to make sure that, oh, he's actually a really good dad. He's caring, he's thoughtful, he appears to maintain appropriate boundaries with the mother of his child, and he's single. If anything, you actually know what type of dad he's probably going to be, potentially, than the guy who's single, who has no children, that you're bringing into this dynamic for the first time, and now he has to figure out how to play this new role and dynamic. Number 3, be willing to acknowledge and support a man's authority and approach if it's appropriate towards your son, if he shows the traits of a good husband, a good father, and good partner. A lot of women, when they date as single mothers, challenge the men that are trying to challenge their sons. And because you think you know it all in terms of what he needs as a father to prepare him for manhood, any type of form of calling out, discipline, accountability that you don't agree with, even if it's safe, even if it may even actually be appropriate, you just don't like it. And now he's going to war with you to try to help you keep this boy from jail, and you fighting him on that when it's not his child. A lot of men end up just saying, this ain't worth it. I tried it, and I can't tell you the amount of men that say, I'll never do that again. So if you're actually going to invite a man in and you trust his judgment, you actually have to trust his judgment with your son as well. Number 4, invest in his time with other boys and men, especially. Kendall mentioned mentorship, counseling, coaches, trainers. 12 to 13 years of age and beyond, you actually did your job up to that point. Functionally, everything that you're needed for in terms of nurturing, in terms of fostering a healthy, safe environment. Of course, you can still do those things when he's older, but what he now needs is to face the reality of how the world's going to treat him as a man. And that's going to be something that, in terms of hardships, in terms of tribulation, in terms of having to figure things out and not having a backup plan, having to deal with the consequences of his actions, dads are built, hardwired to be able to do that. They're okay with seeing their son cry. They're okay with seeing their son face adversity. You want to stop the tears. He recognizes the tears will build him. And then last but not least, if he is safe and able to get his needs met, accept that he needs to spend more time with his father than you after age 12. And that's probably the hardest of the four or five things I just listed. If the father is safe and his needs are met with said child, with said father, if he's safe, if his needs are being met, it would be far more beneficial for you long term than trying to deal with a 15, 16-year-old that's taller than you, bigger than you, and is going to start to challenge you and your authority, and you're the only one in the house. My mom had to go to war to figure out how to deal with me from 15, 16, 17 when my dad wasn't in the picture. And I started to move and act in a way that I know I wouldn't have done if my dad wasn't there. I know with 100% confidence that I would not have acted the way that I did if my father was still there, or if I was sent to live with him and see her on the weekends and see her during the summer. You've done your part when he reaches right before his early years. That teenage time period, testosterone's, the puberty, the figuring out how to navigate which type of male influences to listen to, that's where the men are going to be most important. That's when the fathers are most important. So those are my 4 or 5 suggestions. I'm sure people, when they comment, are going to say why I don't know what I'm talking about. but I do hope for those that is open that maybe some of those could potentially be helpful.
Good stuff, brother. Joy.
You won beyond 5. I just had to tease you. No, really great points. And I think I took some notes. I think for me, from my personal experience, I think, yes, I agree with you that about the sort of the developmental stage they're in, it really matters, especially as they get into teenage years and more time with dad and stuff. But as to everything we've been talking about, I said whether man or woman, we all need some kind of healing, some recognition of our backgrounds, what impacts our lives or impacted our life. What have we healed? What have we just kind of compacted? And so let's keep it going and unpack that and heal both dad and mom separately, even if even if they're together and they're separate. Go through that so that then we can better inform our child. For me, my ex, we're no longer together, and so to your point about having discussions about certain things where I go, this is your job. This is not mine, right? That's not my mom. My mom said this is dad's stage, and sometimes I have to have that conversation a few times and go, that's he's growing. You have to get on it and have these conversations. But the other thing too is with time with dad is the quality. It's not just hanging out with dad, right? Is because they're picking up things, is a quality of what they have. So I do like your you and Kendall saying spend time not just with dad, but men in the family. I have 2 brothers, and I've said, hey, he's your nephew, right? You've gone through life as a man, as Black man in America. He's your nephew. He's known you since he's known anything. He needs to get that perspective from you, and anyone else like Uncle Mel that he can talk to, right? And get different perspectives and different life experiences, right? And kind of get that. So not just dad, because dad might not all have the answer. Just what he got from his dad too, right? Is what he could pass along. So that's it. But I think also personally, for me, I'm kind of a strict mother in the sense that the war you're saying your mom went through, what I'm praying and what I've worked at is that I don't have to do that. Because even now, my son knows that if that door closes the wrong way, he's going to open it and go, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Right. And so just kind of making sure I'm on top of that. Sometimes it's difficult to be that disciplinarian, but stay on it because he needs that. He needs to always know my authority as his mother, and that respect he needs to accord me. And I'm hoping on that side we're doing that, right? Because if he cannot respect us, if we cannot have expectations that we don't have to say too much about this, he knows, right? The world is going to chew him up and spit him out, right? So I think your points are valid for sure, but if we're still dealing with people who don't know left from right, if we're still dealing with society and community where we don't have the elders who are instilling the wisdom, I'm just worried that even with the mentorship groups and all of these, like how much wisdom are these kids getting, right? It's good, it's better than nothing, but I'm just wondering, are they really getting equipped, right, to face the world that we live in today? When we don't have the community around them to instill that wisdom as maybe we grew up. I'm Gen X too. And so there are some things that my mom will have conversation and some things there is no conversing about that. It is what it is, period. Right. So that's my take on that is avoiding that is starting really young. It's good when they're older and teenagers, but really young and just knowing like as a mother, this is my part. This is my joy, my honor, my privilege, my responsibility. These are what they are. This is your part as my son. And making sure that I am consistently applying that. It's exhausting sometimes, but I have to be consistent and keep my eye on the price. I'm doing this because this privilege of being his mother, right? This is a great responsibility. And it's only a matter of time. He's going to be going off into the world, right? Have I prepared him? Because if I've not, I have failed.
Awesome. Ida.
They said everything that I could possibly even say. But my one thing is just get a man, get a life. That's the only thing I can really say is he's never going to be your man. You need to be helping him to become a man, somebody husband one day, and a father. That's just it.
I love it. Thank you guys for that. In the interest of time, let's move on to our last question, which is what is one thing we need to normalize to rebuild healthy mother-son relationships? I think the front is ask a brother.
All right. I did mention it before about the need for humility for all of us in terms of one, if we want to say that everything's so broken, everything's so messed up, our go-to is to point to the other direction. If things are so broken and I'm a man, it's the women's fault. If moms are unhappy, it's the father's fault, kind of thing. The humility is like acknowledging our role to play in how we got in the situation we're in and the steps that we need to take to try to fix, resolve, and potentially change the direction of where our life is heading. It takes humility. And anything apart from that is just a band-aid to me. And the second part of the humility side of it is we have to really reevaluate the role of how we think of male leadership and men in this community specifically. We've gotten to a place of functionally being a matriarchy, regardless of if it's a single parent or two parent household. What mom says goes. Happy wife, happy life. So we've and sometimes it's a benefit. I'm not gonna hold you. It's great to have a mom happy. I'm not denying that. But when we get to a point where we're more humble than where we were before and willing to ask for feedback, seek it out, and also recognizing you can't keep only surrounding yourself in a bubble of women and being confused at why things aren't working out with men. Maybe maybe you actually have to be okay with the possibility that an older male role model, an older male family member, a man that you just respect, even in the workplace potentially, may have a different perspective of what men are looking for, what men are willing to do, what men are willing to deal with and not deal with, and how to restore situations that may be kind of broken right now with said man that you are currently dating or have a child with. I think a lot of times when these situations happen, we either get in our own heads or we run to our said safe groups of people who aren't going to tell us either what we need to hear or help us to humanize the person that we're at odds with. I promise you, if more women had talked to more men, they may have reevaluated some of the men they were choosing to sleep with. Especially if you're talking to men that have no interest in wanting to sleep with you. They have no problem being honest. And then on the flip side, if more men were actually having better relationships with women around them, especially women that are mature, older, they may have to reevaluate some of the women that they're getting pregnant and giving so much time, energy, and resources to. So unless we're gonna be humble and unless we're willing to be honest with ourselves about the need to value the other perspective outside of our group, that's the only way I can see how we can actually start to fix this issue.
Nice. Joy.
I'm a big advocate for therapy and counseling, because I think we all have our blind sides, we all have our weaknesses. Seems like bad, but not really weakness. It's more about we evolve and we learn, especially as women, as we age. If it's not the hormones, there's just always something, right? And so we might mean well in our heart, but there are other things, environmental factor. There's the changes within. So therapy and just gauging, for me, it's really gauging. I think, ask a brother, you said this area about the age, right? That where they are, like, okay, what does my son need most of this between these ages and like this, and kind of say, okay, biologically, this is what's happening. This is how it might manifest, and being attuned to that, I think is what mothers need to. Sometimes you don't have the time a lot, but this is your great project. And the humility you talk about, it's humble yourself, say this is your top priority more than anything else, to spend the time to know at this stage, this is what they need most from me. This is how do I navigate that? How can I be more present in the way that my child needs me? Another way I think, oh, I'm doing the best that I can. And then once we can do that, then we can set a plan on how to approach it. But I think therapy is really great. It helps you not to beat yourself down because you are doing the best that you can, but also helps you, affirms you and encourages you and gives you the tools on how to really navigate parenting, whether with an ex, whether with a current relationship you're having, but not losing focus on what's at hand and how crucial it is for this little one that has never been here before, that needs you more than ever. And you are that number one person, you and the dad, if the dad is present, to guide him or her across, well, we're talking about sons, across this journey, this path that we're in. And so that's what I would advise. Start with therapy, make sure that you're in the right frame of mind, make sure that you have the tools that you need, but then start having conversations if you've not started with your child. Open that door. It's never too late to kind of have conversation. You can start with something as simple like, hey, what are we doing this weekend? Right? Oh, there's this show in town or something where you create time and space for just the two of you. And that gets to the intimacy you were talking about, Kendall, right? The healthy intimacy that you can have. And that leaves room for this child who could be confused, who can have questions, to come to you. There's safe space to ask questions. But the healthy boundary is that you champion him. Oh, cool. I'm happy for you. Go do that. Right? You and dad are going to do that. So that child knows not to be so attached that they're like, oh, I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you too, but I'll be right here. Like, go ahead. Right. So that's that.
Good stuff. Ida.
I think we need to normalize telling women that their son is not their bae, their daddy, or their kings. I really need that to be normalized to where that's like a thing. Soon you hear your